So here we go. It's Senior Max time, qualifying Heat 2, Groups B and C. Let's run you through the starting order as the drivers now make their way for their sighting lap ahead of the formation lap before we go green for 10 minutes plus an additional lap. On pole position, it's Benjamin Törnqvist Perez. Alongside him will be Mick Knowlton in the 294. Then it's a Swedish row 2, Matilda Olsson and Jesper Sjöberg with Tijman and Philip Vava rounding out row 3. Then it's Kuppens, Knudsen, row 4, Belashin and Rapange on row 5 with Haralambus and Kristianstad row 6, Anderson and Ali row 7, Fred and Parviainen row 8, Friedel and Axel row 9, Donic and Apps row 10, Grinnerup and Brown Nutley row 11, Virus Wörtela row 12, Kivi and Rundqvist row 13 with De Hoys, Buthorn and Zaxa rounding out the 29 strong grid. So there's a breeze of around 12 miles per hour. Current air temperature is around 24 degrees Celsius here in Kristianstad as the field is now starting to get towards the last sector. But top 10, it's Törnqvist Perez with Knowlton alongside on the front row, Olsson and Sjöberg, row 2, Tijman, Vava, row 3, Kuppens, Knudsen, row 4, Belosin and Rapang on row 5 as the field now concertinas towards the 2x2 rolling start formation. Drivers are now getting themselves zoned in to get the start absolutely down pat as we're about to go racing in the Senior Max division for the second time today. So drivers now coming through the tram lines. Revs rise and we are off, heading down into turn 1. As there's a bit of side-by-side going into turn number 2. It's very fast and very treacherous. Oh, and there's contact. Contact down the far end of the field. One cart stricken off of turn number 2 already. The cart was spun 180 degrees, facing the wrong way going into turn number 2. And it was down at the back part of the field. And there's more challenges for overtakes going into turn 6, it looks like, or turn 6 or 7, as the field now makes its way towards the final part of the section, as there's bumping and boring between Tijman and Knowlton for position. That was for 3rd, and it's side by side for 5th, it looks like, coming down the start-finish line, start-finish straight, which was between the 250 of Vava, and I think Sjöberg might have been involved there as well. So Emily De Hoys was the unfortunate recipient of contact there going into turn number 2. So leading at the moment it's Benjamin Törnqvist Perez from Sweden ahead of Matilda Olsson. Nick Knowlton now in 3rd. Tijman now into 4th ahead of Philip Vava from Spain, who completes the top 5. And Knowlton is getting incredibly racy and trying to get past Matilda Olsson. Now, Olsson has had her fair share of overtakes, but also has had to defend to the hilt, and she did so very, very well and accredited herself quite nicely as Mick Knowlton actually thinks otherwise and goes up the inside into the final corner to take 2nd position. But Olsson is immediately on the attack into turn number 1, was bump drafting on the back of Knowlton there as they came out of the final corner. Knowlton just basically tried to go up the inside into the final corner, and Olsson went, you know what, I'm going to keep on your back bumper and I'm going to hound you because I want that 2nd place back. And there's further changes a little bit further down the order as well, and it looks like, we've had 3 carts off on the start-finish straight. Friedel is one of them, Rapange as well, and Fred in the 223. So that's 3 carts eliminated. Emily De Hoys was the first one to retire. Now make that 4 out of 29. No longer competing in Senior Max Heat number 2. So leaders coming across the start-finish line. Well, Knowlton's got the hammer down and goes past Törnqvist, past into turn number 1. Great move by the 294 to take the lead And hot on Knowlton's heels was Matilda Olsson, but did not have enough time to get past her countryman. But Olsson is also thinking about it and goes up the inside of him as well. So that's 2 places for Törnqvist Pers, now down from first into third place. But Filip Vava is hot on his heels too. So the Spaniard's thinking of trying to get past up into third position. So Knowlton leads from Matilda Olsson from Törnqvist Pers, and Vava just tries to barge his way through. Slightest of side pod contact there as the Spaniard muscles his way past into third position. So the top 5 quite literally separated by only 1.3 seconds, but with the pace they're carrying, it's just been incredibly impressive. So Ben Törnqvist Pers now drops down into 4th place, having lost on the last lap 3 positions. So to Mick Knowlton, who now leads from Matilda Olsson with Filip Vava. And Sjöberg is also looming very large there on the back bumper of Törnqvist Pers. And we have just under 6 minutes plus an additional lap to go in this second qualifying heat for the Senior Max division. So top 10 at the moment, it is Knowlton from Olsson, from Vava, from Törnqvist Pers, with Sjöberg in 5th place. Nick Cuppens in 6th ahead of Tijman, with Sebastian Bellesin and Alfie Haralambus, with Knudsen running out the top 10. Filip Vava's just set the fastest lap of the race in the process, 53.349. So the Spaniard is on a charge. And a little bit further down the order, just trying to keep an eye on what's going on behind the top 5, with Nick Cuppens leading that trail. All very tightly packed. So between Nick Cuppens in 6th place and Jordan Brown Nutley down in 14th, they are separated by just 2.4 seconds, as someone's just lost out 2, maybe even 3 places going into the final sector. And one of them that got past was Anderson in the 2:11. Leaders come across the start-finish line, so Knowlton extends the gap between himself and Matilda Olsson into just half a second last time around. Filip Vava again goes quick, but not as quick as Mick Knowlton, who's just set the fastest lap of the race of 53.128. Törnqvist Pers is still keeping in touch, as is Sjöberg as well. So Knowlton leads from Olsson, Vava, Törnqvist Pers, Sjöberg, Cuppens, Tijman, Haralambus, Bellesin, Knudsen and Christensen rounding out the top 11. And there's a really great battle between Cuppens, Tijman and Haralambus, as Tijman goes up the inside of Cuppens going into the final corner and takes 6th place. Parviainen has got past Jordan Brown Nutley for 14th place. Virus has got past Saxe a little bit further down the order for 21st. With De Huys, Friedel, Fred and Rapagne no longer taking any part in this race. But Knowlton, I think, is just trying to control the race. Doesn't need to win. It doesn't need to win it by a huge amount, but could. But is keeping a good distance between himself and Matilda Olsson, with Filip Vava from Spain hot on the Swede's heels, going through into the final corner. And the Spaniard has really come alive in this round, and is looking for that opportunity when he can get past the Swede, but it's not quite happening yet. They now go into turn number 3 with Vava still in close proximity with Matilda Olsson. And Vava was really good under the brakes there going into, I think, was turn number 5 or 6. And he's using a slightly wider line to try and carry the momentum through the corners. And it seems to be working at the moment, but it isn't allowing him to use that opportunity, as there's changes a little bit further down the order. And that looked to be for 7th or 8th place. So I'm wondering if Haralambos has also made up a place in the process. So leaders come across the start-finish line. Mick Knowlton still leads. Matilda Olsson second. Vava just fractionally behind Tornquist, Beres and Sjöberg. Haralambos got past Nick Cuppins there. So that was the move I just managed to clock out of my line of sight, the corner of my eye, into the final sector. As Olsson has gone ultra defensive with 1 minute and 40 to go, plus an additional lap ahead of the charging Spaniard Matador that is Filip Vava, who's really showing great promise around here in Kristianstad, and it's a top 3 finish will help the Spaniard no end towards where he qualifies after the conclusion of all 3 qualifying heats here in Kristianstad. So Knowlton is still very much controlling this race, keeping the pace consistent, but not allowing Matilda Olsson or Filip Vava to close up as they cross the start-finish line with just over a minute remaining here in the second Senior Max qualifying heat. So, apart from the top 5, Tijman is leading Haralambos for position. Then it's Cuppins, Belhosin, Knudsen and Andersen rounding out the top 10. Well, rounding out the top 11, my apologies there. As Knowlton still has about 30 seconds plus an additional lap, so it will be this. So when they cross the start-finish line, it will be, I think... So we'll have this lap as the leaders come around the final corner. So Knowlton still keeps that distance between himself and Matilda Olsson. Quite consistent, was 5.5 tenths. It's just under that now. And Olsson actually did a better lap time that time around with Vava, who's trying to not go for fastest laps, but is trying to go for a position change. So the Spaniard is eager to get past the Swede for second position on the road. Rundqvist has got past Saxa for 22nd. Miles Apps is down in 21st at the moment. Bertolo and Buthorn ran out the 25 that are still competing in this second qualifying heat, as Vava is really closing yet again on the back bumper of Matilda Olsson. They've lost. They've actually dropped on Tornquist, Beres and Sjöberg in the process. So 1 lap to go for Mick Knowlton, who is continuing to lead. The gap is still just over half a second, but Vava's fast running out of time to get past Matilda Olsson for second place. So they go into turns 3 and 4 for the final time. Now it's the short blast up into the turn 5 90-degree left-hander. And it's then it's another 90-degree at turn 6 through into the approaching the final sector. Checkered flag is being prepared, and it's now or never for Filip Vava, who still is right on the back bumper of Matilda Olsson for second, but I think the Swede has probably done enough to hold off the charge of the Spaniard. So Mick Knowlton is about to come around the final corner. Filip Vava hasn't got an answer for Matilda Olsson, so it looks like Mick Knowlton is going to take the win, and Matilda Olsson has done a fantastic job to secure second ahead of Spain's Filip Vava. Tornquist Pels finishes 4th ahead of Sjöberg. Tijman, Haralambos, Cuppins, Belhosin and Knudsen rounding out the top 10. But it's a great win, a very controlling win, I must say, of Mick Knowlton. So let's run you through the finishing order for qualifying heat number 2 for the Senior Maxes. So Mick Knowlton took the win by just over half a second from Matilda Olsson, who went ultra defensive for the last part of the race to finish second ahead of Spain's Filip Vava, with Benjamin Tornquist Beres rounding out the top 4. Then it was Sjöberg in 5th place, ahead of Tijman, Alfie Haralambos, Nick Cuppins, Sebastian Belhosin, Robin Knudsen, Charlie Anderson, Bengtsson Axel, Konrad Kristianstad, Juho Parviainen, Jordan Brown Nutley, Kamil Donic, Largim Ali, Kairo Kivi, Virus, Regina Grinerup, Miles Apps, Patrick Rundqvist, Christopher Zaxer, Bertela Buthon, with Rapagne, Fred and Friedel and De Hoy's eliminees from this race.